Life isn't about answers, it's about questions. Asking good questions is key to learning. That's a proven fact. And there's no more important question than why Jesus? So get ready as we dive into the conversation together on the next episode of the Why Jesus podcast.
All right.
What up, Ryan?
What up, man? We did it on time tonight.
I know. Mine says 9:02. So
that's close enough to on time for me.
there was this guy, motivational speaker that I knew. He would always tell me, John, to be on time is to be late. And no, he said to be early is to be on time, and to be on time is to be late.
To be late, right?
Yep.
And well, we're switching it up in the YouTube world. To be late is on time, and to be on time is early. I don't know.
I think so, because it's like the more you push back starting, the more people can sign in. But then at the same time, the more you push back starting, the more people sign out. So it's this lose-lose situation we put ourselves in as content creators.
It is.
Yep.
It is.
But anyway, what's up, everybody in the chat? How are you guys doing? Where are you guys tuning in from?
Yeah, so we were supposed to well, first let me tell you this. We got a lot to talk about tonight. There's a lot of interesting news. If you saw the thumbnail and saw the title, lots of stuff going on in Canada, lots of stuff going on in China we're going to talk about, and then also some Mormon pirate news that I know you guys are going to be looking forward to. We were supposed to be doing this in person, actually.
Yep.
I was supposed to be with my guy John in Puerto Rico tonight, but the Lord had other plans. I was actually sitting at the gate waiting to get onto the airplane, and I got an email that came through that basically said that going to Puerto Rico wasn't going to make sense for me this week. And so I called United. I switched everything up, but my bag is there in Puerto Rico. I guess that's the good news. So my bag might be with John.
Dude, need me to pick it up? I could go get it. Like
nobody knows where it is. That's the problem.
I'm like 12 minutes. No, I think we're 20 minutes from the airport now.
Yeah.
But
so my toothbrush is closer to you than it is to me right now.
Yeah, I can smell it through the internet. So
smell-o-vision.
But yeah, man, I tell you what, bro, it's hot out here. Like, I'm in the living room right now. Well, technically this is our dining room / living room. It's one big room, as they do here in Puerto Rico. But it's so hot that I can't go into the studio. Like, I just can't do it. It's too hot.
Man.
It might be better that, when you come in November, because that is perfect weather. If you guys listening have never been to Puerto Rico in winter, like fall and winter time, it is beautiful. My brother came out last January and we went snorkeling. Like, the weather is perfect. You could still go swimming, and then at night you put on a little hoodie, you're good to go. I love Puerto Rico winters.
That is pretty nice. Last time I was there was like, I want to say July or August of last year. And the people at the hotel it seemed kind of dead. And I was like, I asked the people at the hotel if it's usually like that. And they said, really, the summer there is like the slow season at the hotels.
Yep.
Because a lot of people are trying to go there in the fall and the winter.
Yep. The snowbirds.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyways, I guess we're really talking about the weather here.
We are. It seems to happen a lot. Seems to. Let's get into it. Let
me see if I can share the first headline here. Hold on. I'm always unprepared with this. Give me a second, guys.
You're better at it than me.
All right. Here we go. All right. No human remains found 2 years after claims of mass graves in Canada. After 2 years of horror stories about the alleged mass graves of Indigenous children at residential schools across Canada, a series of recent excavations at suspected sites has turned up no human remains. So to be honest with you, John, and with the audience here, I honestly didn't know a whole lot about this story prior to seeing this. Did you already know much about this?
Yeah, so I have a story about this story. Um, when we were going to Guatemala 2 years ago, um, we were just at the gate, except our luggage was with us, right? And we went to where our luggage was going to be. We didn't just let our luggage go without us.
Must be nice.
But me and my wife were at the gate, and we just met a woman from Canada who was traveling solo. So since we've been to Guatemala, I don't know, maybe like 10 times. My wife has been like 5 or 6. We know at least some areas. We know what to do. We know what to look for. We know what's good, what's not good, the good food to eat. We know a whole lot. So we're just offering her some travel advice because she's going by herself, and she was a little nervous. And I'm like, look, Guatemala is a beautiful place. She went to Antigua, and it's a very touristy area. And, I'm like, you're going to be fine. You're going to have a whole lot to do. You're going to meet a whole bunch of amazing people. The Guatemalan people are great. And I don't know how it went from that to, probably because we spoke about the schools that we build out there and how we build them in indigenous neighborhoods, if you could call it, up in the mountains, in the rural areas. So that went to her discussing how there was these mass graves of indigenous people found by, whatever technology they were claiming found them in Canada. And there was all of these kids that were massacred by Christians. And me and my wife, this lady doesn't know we're Christian. And she just goes on rambling about this. And she was a really nice lady. So don't take me speaking about her as like, wow, she was this evil person. I just think she was misinformed on it. But she went off on this tangent about the evils that these Christians have done. And look, some Christians have done some pretty evil things, but apparently 2 years later, we now know this is not one of them, right?
Yeah.
And it's sad because churches were burned because of this. Monuments were torn down. Churches were vandalized, and people who went there were threatened. And it turned into this whole, instead of it being mass graves, it was this mass hysteria of just attacks on Christians. And then here we are 2 years later, and there's been no evidence found of these mass graves actually existing. Now, I'm not saying that they don't, because you never know. Maybe they dig somewhere else, they find something. But all I'm saying is, if we don't have all the information about something, and then we build a whole entire story around it, this nightmarish story of these evil Christians who massacred all these indigenous children, and those stories cause violent lashbacks to whether it's churches or whether it's people, I don't care what it causes, this lashing out towards, it's just wrong. And this is what happens when you don't know all the information, when people are guilty before proven innocent. And I'm glad, one, that this massacre didn't happen, because any massacres that happen are just purely evil. But I'm also glad that it hasn't happened, so we can hopefully, as a society, look at things like this and say, all right, I'm going to wait before I jump out the window. I'm going to wait till I gather all of the information.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't find that that's very common in our generation or in our culture. I
Listen,
think
I can
there
be
is this.
hopeful. I can be
Yeah.
hopeful.
I think, there is this sort of headline culture where everybody just sort of reads the headline, and whatever the headline says, that's what they feel and that's what they know without spending time researching it and forming their own opinion about things. I think that's all too common. Let's keep
Yeah.
going here. Let me see if this article gives us a little bit more information. It says some academics and politicians say that this is further evidence that the stories are unproven. There's a name here that I'm not even going to try to pronounce, but it's a group of indigenous people, also known as Pine Creek First Nation, excavated 14 sites in the basement of Our Lady of Seven Sorrows Catholic Church near the Pine Creek Residential School in Manitoba during 4 weeks this summer. The so-called anomalies were first detected using ground-penetrating radar, but on August 18th, Chief Derrick of remote Pine Creek Indian Reserve said no remains were found. He also referred to the effort as the initial excavation, leading some who are skeptical of the original claims to think even more are planned. I don't like to use the word hoax because it's too strong, but there are also too many falsehoods circulating about this issue with no evidence. Jacques Rouillard, a professor emeritus in the Department of History at the University of Montreal, told the Post Wednesday. So I guess they're going to continue to do more excavations, it seems like. They're not finished digging up the basement. And it also seems like it's just one church, if I'm reading this correctly.
It's I think it was a campus. It was a school. It wasn't just
Okay.
yeah, it wasn't just a church. It was like a boarding school kind of. So when that lady planted the seed in my head of this mass genocide that happened with these kids in Canada, when I got back when I got back home, I started researching and looking into it, and I found a couple YouTubers who were digging into this information, and they were coming back with the same results, saying like, "Nah, this is a lie. This is a hoax. This didn't really happen," and that even inquiring about it, they were getting they were getting the runaround from people when they presented the information that said that this is a possible hoax. So, and I don't want to say that it is a hoax. I'm not sitting up like on my high horse, like, oh, look at these people. They're wrong. We're right. That's not what I'm trying to do here. It just goes back to what I said originally. Just make sure that you logically look at things. And even if, though, here's the thing, even if this did happen, responding violently this long after the fact to people who were not involved in it at all is still wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, and it looks like we got This Is Salvation here. What's up, Matt? He's saying that there was huge funding for this stuff that hasn't shown for anything. It looks like it says here in the article, within days of the, I guess that's pronounced Kamloops announcement, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau decreed, partly at the request of tribal leaders, that all flags on federal buildings fly at half staff. The Canadian government and provincial authorities pledged about $320 million to fund more research, and in December pledged another $40 billion involving First Nations child welfare claim settlements that partially compensate some residential school attendees.
Wait. Can you repeat that last part, the 40 billion?
That's crazy.
That's like Ukraine money.
That's crazy, right? Where are they getting this $40 billion?
Hold on. So they paid essentially $40 billion in restitution to families who were possibly maybe descendants of some of these children that have not been found.
It also says partially compensate some residential school attendees.
I just want to know, some is a relative term when speaking about the world population.
Yeah.
So how
Hold
do you
on.
pay $40 billion to some people? Can I be some people? Can I be
Here,
some
look.
people?
Let's do some calculations, because right here they said an estimated 150,000 children attended the schools.
Okay,
You can't see the calculator on my screen,
it's all right.
but
We're going to
let's
trust
do
your calculations.
40 billion
Oh my
divided
gosh.
by 150,000. That would equal $266 million. Oh, sorry. No, I'm sorry. Don't, wait a second. $266,000. I apologize.
Okay, per person.
266,000 per person that attended the schools. However, the attendance began in the 1880s, and it says that it ran through the end of the 20th century. So I highly doubt the large majority of these people are alive.
Probably not, but they probably track down their relatives. But if they don't find anything, and they gave all of this money, $40 billion of Canadian people's tax money to these families, that's crazy. Like,
That's
that
a
is
lot of money, man.
bananas. I mean, hey, if I don't agree with it, but if they were able to pull that off,
Yeah, good for them.
make a movie out of it,
Yeah.
That's incredible.
It says also that Pope Francis issued a formal apology on behalf of the Catholic Church, which ran many of the residential school facilities, and asked for God's forgiveness.
Interesting.
Number of writers, academics, and politicians have come out cautioning against the claim that hundreds or thousands of children are buried at the school, but they have been labeled genocide deniers. That's all you have to do today, is give somebody some sort of negative label, and then automatically they're crazy, right?
Colonizers.
Yeah, colonizer, anti-vaxxer, genocide denier, racist, whatever it may be, whatever you could call somebody.
Bigot. You bigot.
Yeah, bigot. That just automatically nullifies whatever they have to say, right?
Yeah, that's like saying full stop. Full stop.
It says, even though many of the skeptics do not dispute that conditions at the school were often harsh, the evidence does not support the overall gruesome narrative put forward around the world for several years, a narrative for which verifiable evidence has been scarce or non-existent.
I'm surprised they're even talking about this. Usually when something like this happens, nobody talks about it. They're like, they brush it under the rug. Like, oh, didn't find the graves.
Yeah.
Next story. Next, what's Trump doing? What's Trump doing?
Yeah. This is interesting. It says Yellowhorn, who's a member of the Blackfoot Nation, had been hired by Canada's powerful Truth and Reconciliation Commission. I'm interested to know what that even is.
Yeah, we're gonna that's gonna be our next thing. We got to look into it.
The Truth Commission.
Yeah.
To search for and identify grave sites of Indigenous children at the residential schools. But he said then that many of the graves he found were from actual cemeteries, and it wasn't clear how they died. So perhaps...
Here's the thing. If you truly do believe that this happened, right? If you're somebody who does, I understand diligently seeking to rectify this. I totally understand it. If you're under the impression that this did happen and that there is evidence for it, and I'm gonna find this out. I'm gonna bring this to light. I respect that. I totally respect going after what you believe in. But when you don't yield the results and it comes back empty-handed, you got to eat that. You got to tell people, hey, this is what we thought. We did our investigation. We were wrong. Sorry to all of the churches that were burned down. My bad. Maybe they can do restitution for that, $40 billion or something to all the churches that were burned down.
Okay. Yeah, that's not going to happen in our lifetime.
Only the affirming ones, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Let's see. We got I was able to pull up a picture here. This is a church that was burnt down. It says in Morinville, Alberta on July 1st. Because the churches were burned down and vandalized after the supposed findings.
It's tough, man.
Yeah. It is, and I also, I feel for some folks if you truly believe, that this happened, that there was some sort of genocide or something of that nature, and you've believed this for a couple of years, I can see how evidence pointing against that would cause some sort of emotional response where you wouldn't want to admit you're wrong, because you're so emotionally tied to this belief that it just feels like, you just can't give it up like that. Somebody's got to do another investigation or whatever. So
yeah, they keep scratching the itch until it just bleeds,
Yeah.
Till they find like somebody's tooth or something like that,
Yeah.
Here it is. I knew we found it. Can you quickly look up before we jump into our next topic that truth committee or whatever that was?
Yeah, let me see. That's so interesting. That is so 1984, thought police.
I know, right?
Let's
You ever watched
see.
the movie
Okay.
1984?
No, I think I'd be a little scared too. I read the book.
It's a little tough to watch, but I watched
Yeah.
it. It's interesting.
I could see it being a little bit gruesome. Let's see. Hold on. Let me present the screen.
It was more weird than gruesome.
It is a weird book, but it's
What's the guy's name who played in Silence of the Lambs?
oh, is it?
I think he's a Christian. Yeah, Anthony Hopkins.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was in 1984.
I'm pretty sure he was like the bad guy, and he was really creepy. Really creepy.
Gotcha. All right. This is from the Government of Canada's website, unless I'm tripping and I don't know what I'm talking about.
It says Government of Canada.
Yeah. We got a .ca here, a .gc.ca, so that seems pretty legit. All right. So
somebody
it
ask
says,
Matt.
Yeah, Matt, tell us if .gc.ca means it's the Government of Canada. All right. It says Truth and Reconciliation Commission of Canada. The Truth and Reconciliation Commission, otherwise known as TRC, provided those directly or indirectly affected by the legacy of the Indian residential school system with an opportunity to share their stories and experiences.
What stories and experiences, though?
That's a good question.
Like about
I guess about their time in the residential schools. From what I'm gathering, it said that these went up until the end of the 20th century, so there could definitely be folks still alive that were.
Well, I don't doubt that some conditions were probably ridiculous.
Yeah.
I definitely don't doubt that.
Agreed. Let's see. Oh man, I want to see. I just want to keep going down this hole. They got an official mandate.
Oh, read it. Read the official mandate.
Okay, let's see. Hold on. Here it is. Here it comes. Mandate for the Truth and Reconciliation Commission.
For everybody who's listening on streaming services, sorry for the lulls and the blank white noise. We're researching right
Yeah,
now.
that's we're digging deep into this hole. No pun intended. All right,
That was
mandate
a
for the
poor choice
truth.
of words. An absolutely poor choice. I was just gonna let it go, and then you pointed it out. You pointed out that was an absolutely hard. That was the worst timing of the worst thing you could say, considering the topic that we're covering. That we are covering. I can't even talk now. I'm so nervous to get canceled because of what you just said.
I didn't know if I should. Okay, that my pause afterward was like, okay, do I bring attention to this or do I just let it slide?
You made it worse, Ryan. You made it worse. Read the thing. Read the thing.
I apologize. All right, it's the mandate for the Truth and Reconciliation Commission.
We're not going to be able to make it through this thing now.
It says there's
just kill
an
it. Let's move on to the next subject.
All right. Okay, you're right. You know what? It's too late. We're too deep into this hole. We can't dig ourselves out.
All right, next subject.
All right. Next subject, as you guys will remember, is
please be something a little more lighthearted.
Is coming up on the screen now. If you guys will remember, the Pirate Bible. We spoke about this with Jeremy and LT, and apparently the Bible was translated into pirate talk. So not the King James version, the pirate version. We even went through and did some impressions here for you.
Really
so
bad.
We got some breaking news from Jeremy, who told us that the Pirate Bible has some negative affiliations if you're a Christian, and it is tied to the Mormon church. And if you guys will recall, what we tried to do while we were on the stream was see if we could just get a free Bible, because apparently if you get the Pirate Bible, you can also get a free Bible. And what we were told, I have not verified this by my fact checkers, but what we were told is that if you click the button to get a free Bible, that some Mormons will show up to your house and try to preach the Mormon gospel to you. So, off the cuff, what are your thoughts on that?
I watched Mike Winger cover this. I watched it briefly before hopping on here. So apparently, I was doing the dishes, so I was more listening than watching. But he went through where if you go through the process, you got to click the terms and conditions or whatever, and in it says that they're going to be giving your information to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and from there you can get your Bible and they'll contact you, and you're essentially agreeing to allowing somebody from the Church of Latter-day Saints to contact you in order for you to get that Bible. So it's like I love how it's a pirate doing pirate stuff, like it's a pirate book doing pirate stuff. This couldn't be more in alignment.
Yeah, very true.
It would. True. The only thing better it would be is if they wrote it as Achilles from Troy. Like that's the only thing that would be better.
I did, at first I was a little sad because, I was on the fence. I thought the Bible was funny. Maybe it's a little bit blasphemous. Okay, sure. But I thought it was a little bit funny and a little interesting.
The idea is funny.
It is. And maybe turn it into a game or something. Maybe not like make the whole Bible into pirate, but make a game, whatever. Okay, no big deal. But then when Jeremy said that this is Mormon driven, I thought it totally made sense, because Mormons love to change what the Bible actually says.
I thought you were gonna say they love pirates. Like I thought you
They
knew.
also love pirates, I
I
guess.
thought you knew a whole bunch of. I gotta ask. I got a couple friends that are Mormon. I gotta ask.
Yeah.
Like, hey man, you like pirates?
Is there something like going on there?
Yeah. Moroni
Yeah,
is a
so
pirate. Apparently, Moroni's a pirate. The angel Moroni.
is that right?
Yeah, he's a pirate. I'm making this up as I go along. I don't want anyone to quote me.
Captain
and say,
Moroni.
Captain.
I could totally see it.
Matey Moroni.
Matey Moroni. I could
Matey
totally see it.
Moroni. Yep.
Yeah, so that's what's gonna happen. You think you're just getting a fun little Bible, but
And
the Mormons.
it bothers me because it's when we were going through it, and if you guys want to check that out, I believe it's episode 26 where we discussed it, and you could hear our pirate impressions. But it bothers me because it's like this. You're getting all of this attention, right? And then you play the nice guy and say, "Look, we know this is not the best thing to be doing. We did it for fun. This is the reasons why we're doing it. It's a fun way to get the gospel and to get people to engage. And we'll make sure to give you a real translation, even if you purchase this pirate one. So yeah, this is just fun, but don't worry, you're going to get a real Bible when you purchase this. So essentially, you're getting 2 Bibles for 1. So when you hear that, it's like, yeah, I disagree with these guys, but at least they're giving somebody a real Bible, and maybe that's a good thing. Well, it's definitely a good thing to give somebody a Bible, but maybe what they're doing is well-intentioned, and, I don't want to judge somebody off of, me just not understanding fully what it is they're trying to do. Because people do that to me, people do that to you. We know what it's like when, we make some content and our brothers and sisters in Christ are like, you're working with the devil, so we know what that feels like. But then to hear that it's a Trojan horse,
it is,
for Mormonism, I'm just like, oh man, like if you were my friend and I heard that you were doing this, and then, I'm like, look, I disagree with you, but I support you. Go do it, brother in Christ. And then I find out you slipping in Mormon stuff. I'm going to be so mad at you. I'm going to be so mad at you.
Yeah. It's a double whammy, bro. They say, okay, yes, it's a fake Bible. And then they say, we're going to give you a real Bible. And that one's fake too. They have you thinking it's a real Bible.
Then they're going to hit you with the plus the Book of Mormon. Like you get that. So look, it's actually 3 for 1. Oh my gosh, look how amazing we are.
Dude. When's the last time a Mormon knocked on your door?
I don't think Mormons exist in Puerto Rico.
Is that right?
Yeah. There's Jehovah's Witnesses. Actually, you just reminded me. Some knocked on the door when I wasn't home, and my wife asked if they would be willing to sit down with me to have a discussion, but that was before we left, and we were gone for 2 months. So I have to have her reach back out to set that up.
Gotcha.
I don't mind having the conversation.
Yeah, for sure. I haven't had them knock on my door in probably years, but I saw them at Target pulling up in a car, and I was like, hold on, fellas. This is not the vehicle of choice. I don't think you should be pulling up in a car to Target.
You need to pull up in a pirate ship now.
Pirate ship. Oh, well, I was thinking bike, but yeah, now it's starting to make sense. They need to be on the ship.
Some people have like have baskets on their bike, or they got like a little flag. They need the skull and crossbone flag on the back of their bike.
It's all making sense, bro. It's all making sense.
It's all coming together. Coming together. The Moroni mobile.
Right. So the Mormons, they tricked you into thinking you're getting a real Bible. They give you a second fake Bible.
Yeah. Womp, 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 womp.
Let's move into our third story for the night. It's back to being a little bit more serious, I guess. says, are there more Christians than communists in China? So obviously, if you guys are living a bit under a rock, you know that you wouldn't know that you cannot be just an outright Christian in China, and so there's a giant underground church, which for many years, probably decades at this point, has been considered to be one of the most thriving churches in the entire world. So we found this article on premierchristianity.com, and I think it's sort of an analysis of the official state numbers of how many Christians there are, because if this is something else that it's sort of a prerequisite to know before going into this article, is that if there's numbers coming from the Chinese government, you kind of got to take that with a grain of salt
Yeah.
on whether or not the numbers are actually legit on pretty much anything, really.
With
But I would
the
say,
grain of salt that was imported on a Mormon pirate ship.
but I would say specifically when it's numbers that would make them look bad, they're seriously going to start downplaying those numbers.
Yeah.
And so that's what this is. So let's get into it a little bit. It says a new paper by the respected Pew Research Center says only 1 in 10 Chinese adults now formally identifies with any religion. Could this signify that the phenomenal growth of Christianity in China is finally petering out? A decline in church growth is exactly what China is hoping for. Since the beginning of September, new measures have come into play cracking down on religious activities by Christians, Muslims, Buddhists, and others, and preventing the display of religious symbols outdoors. They're the latest in a long-running program by the Chinese government of so-called Sinicization, making China more outwardly Chinese. It's making me think.
Wait, what does that even mean? Making China more outwardly Chinese. What does that mean?
That's an excellent question. Excellent question.
Making America more outwardly American.
Yeah, which is, it could be defined so many different ways. And I think that's sort of one of the problems here, is that the government is mandating what being Chinese is. And if you don't fit into that mold, then they're going to change you. They're not going to change the culture of China. They're changing you into what they say the culture of China is.
Yeah. I don't know about all that. I just recently watched a documentary on Mao and his rise to power and the Great Leap Forward, and how he was trying to emulate the Stalinistic version of communism, and he believed that that worldview was the best for everybody, right? But then come to find out, he takes away all of the land from all of these farmers, makes them live in communes, so now they share the land, and then he was all about perception, right? So he wanted the world to perceive China as this like monster and at the forefront of innovation and steel production and stuff. So he essentially starved 45 million people to death.
Crazy.
In overworking them, underpaying them, like not paying them at all, essentially, right? And he did this under the guise of, we're going to suffer for a few years so that way we can enjoy it for the rest of our lives, under telling this to the people of China, to convince them to just give up everything, let the state own everything, and just work around the clock, 24/7. Get your food rationed out. Then they started doing systems of, depending on how hard you worked or how many hours you worked, would determine how much food you got. So if you were sick or pregnant, you didn't get any food because you didn't work.
Crazy.
So yeah, it was nuts. And he's even quoted as saying, when he knew about the starvation, he was saying that it's better that all of these people starve in the rural areas so that way us in the city can thrive. And when I heard him saying that, and this might stray us off topic, so feel free to bring me back in. I think about the political environment in the United States and how a lot of people in the city want to, lean more communistic and socialistic in their worldview. And when I heard him say that and say it's all right if the people in the rural areas starve for us in the city, it made me think I could see how that mentality could play out. Because think about people who want to get rid of the electoral college just because the popular vote, comes from the cities. It really does. I had this discussion with a family member who believes that we shouldn't have the electoral college. I'm like, bro, if we didn't have the electoral college, the United States would be the United States of California.
Yeah.
It would be an absolute disaster. But anyway, to bring that full circle back into, where it is now, that's kind of where communist China started. And one of the core tenets of communism is no religion, the state above everything. You can't have people worshiping something more than the state because the state comes first. And so I find it very hard to believe if they were lying about how much steel they were producing back in the day, if they were lying about how much grain they were producing and lying about how many people were starving to death, and they're lying about all this stuff, I have no doubt that the 1 in 10 being, what's the word I'm looking for? 1 in 10 people in China identifying as anything spiritual. I highly doubt that because ingrained in Chinese culture is tradition.
Yeah.
So there is, the underlying worldview of Buddhism and these religions that go all the way back. You think people are just giving that up because the state wants you to? I doubt it.
Right. And, just looking from the outside, that's one of the first thing people think of when they think of China is the Eastern religions and the temples and the statues and things of that nature. That is like classically Chinese in the worldview of everybody else in the world. But you were right about what you were saying about some of the beginnings of communism and things like that. I was actually listening to Karl Marx's book on audio a few days ago, and I was able to get through it, but it was frustrating to listen to because a lot of the arguments that he puts forth are really emotionally driven arguments that are, I think, that are really just there to cause the reader to feel as if they want to hold this economic worldview that the author is putting forth, because it makes them feel as if they're oppressed by some group of people that is at the top, and that they're just not getting their cut, and that the capitalist machine is just this machine that's created to just destroy the working class. And as I was going through chapter by chapter listening to this, I could think of like 10 responses off the top of my head to the claims he was making about, economic systems and how business works in general, and how wages work for workers. But that's because I'm coming at it from, I think, the opposing side, and I'm thinking about the arguments logically. Whereas if somebody who's just reading this for the first time, or somebody who doesn't have really a deep understanding of how business works and how wealth works in general, they're going to be like, you know what? Yeah, I should be richer because I spent all this time working at my job, and I need to have a bigger cut. And so it just moves you emotionally into this state where you feel as if you're owed all of this stuff from the government and the people on top and things of that nature. And so I think that the Chinese government for so long has been doing such a good job of just pushing the population into what they want them to do. And maybe in the beginning, it was with these emotional type of arguments that maybe truly did persuade a large part of the population But I think the consequence of stepping into it in that beginning is that you really can't get out of it without some sort of revolution where you're taking down the government. And so I think it's important there at the very beginning to just not step into it. And unfortunately, it does seem like a lot of the countries in the Western world we're just like teetering right there on the welcome mat. And we'll see what happens. Whatever happens, I think God is in control, and we shouldn't be putting our hope and aspirations in the government anyway. I think that should be placed in Jesus. And then also, what is truly happening in China is you see that a lot of times when the church is persecuted, that's when it grows and thrives the most anyway.
Yep. That's very true.
Let me keep going a little bit more here in the article, just so we can get a little bit more detail. It says that in practice, this has meant demolishing state-sanctioned churches considered too big for their boots and tearing down more than 1,500 crosses in one of the Chinese provinces alone. And surveillance of Christians has increased dramatically. China has banned any kind of religious presence on the internet without a license, an official license, which includes videos of sermons, and pastors who take up tithes and offerings are being charged with fraud.
Wow.
The net result will inevitably drive Christians who seek freedom of worship into the hidden, illegal underground churches, and there is no effective way the state can measure those numbers. It's a little bit about what we were saying earlier.
You know what
I'm
sorry.
Go ahead.
You know what I think is also interesting too, bringing it back to the pirate Bible thing, right? Here we have this pirate Bible that smuggles in the Mormon Bible, and we can just play around with this stuff and just, let me create this pirate Bible, and then I'll give you the King James, and then we'll also give you the Book of Mormon. And this is how free religion is, where we are, that we can do this. Mm-hmm. And here we have these people in China that, they can't even get their hands on one of these. And here I am buying all these different translations and study Bibles. And it's interesting because no matter how much study Bibling I do, they're the ones that memorize the scripture, not me.
Yeah. Yeah. Very true. The persecution definitely causes folks to treasure it significantly more than, and we can easily take it for granted because it's just, it's no big deal. It's part of our life.
Yeah. Like I'm doing once I'm closer to the end of finishing writing, I'm going to do just a basic Bible study for people who are like me, who didn't grow up in the church and they don't even know where to start in the Bible, how to read it. They don't know the difference between the Old, the New Testament, prescriptive and descriptive passages. Like they just don't know this stuff because I didn't know this stuff. And, mm-hmm. I'm putting this together. I got 50 something people that reached out that want to be a part of it. And never once in my mind am I like worried about if they're going to be able to get their hands on the study Bible that I'm going to refer them to.
Yeah.
I'm just not. So
right.
To hear this whole 1 in 10, and then to know better and know what they're going through in the underground church, it's just, we do have to appreciate our freedom in being able to do so. But also I think we sometimes need a slap in the face of reality with hey, we think we are the best Christians because we know the most theology and we can argue about Calvinism and Arminianism and all of this stuff. But they're the ones that are memorizing the Bible because they don't know how long they'll be able to have it for.
Mm-hmm. Very true. And they're the ones who aren't folding because they're being persecuted. They're still loving the Lord. They're still pursuing the Lord and pursuing relationship with each other, no matter what.
Right.
They're beautiful people, amazing people. All right. So it says the official estimate of the number of Christians in China is between 2 and 3%. Now, keep in mind, this is the official estimate. So this is what's coming
Yeah.
from the Chinese government. According to Pew, some media reports and academic papers have suggested the Christian share may be larger, with estimates as high as 7%, which is around 100 million people, up to 9%, which is around 130 million people. 7 to 9% of the total population, including children.
Yeah.
Pew acknowledges underground Christians may be reluctant to reveal their identity. Likewise, members of the Chinese Communist Party who are prohibited from holding a religious affiliation might not disclose that. Yeah. Can you imagine trying to be a
Might
Christian and being in government?
Might not disclose that.
Yeah.
Okay, buddy.
That's wild. The official numbers of Protestant churches apparently have plateaued at around 60,000. Hardly surprising when churches are being pulled down and stripped of religious symbols, and their ministers are appointed by the state. I didn't realize that, and required to pledge their allegiance to the officially atheist Communist Party. That's crazy.
Wait a minute. So you have a minister that is
Dude.
assigned by the state who has to pledge allegiance to the Communist Party of China.
Yeah.
Yeah, no.
And then supposedly tell people about God.
Man, I'm so grateful we don't have that pressure on us. You know, when we speak out about our Christian beliefs, or we tell somebody we're a Christian, for the most part, the worst thing that's going to happen is we are socially looked down upon. You know, like we lose a little bit of our social esteem when we come out as Christian. That's not how it is in the rest of the world. The rest of the world, you come out as Christian, that could be your last day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. It says, okay, so this is really the main point here. It looks like it says there's a stark contrast to official Chinese government figures, which say the number of Protestants in China grew from 700,000 back in 1949 up to 38 million in 2018. So the Chinese government says that there's 38 million. However, right before that, a U.S.-based research center says that they estimate it's probably around 109 million Protestant Christians. So that's not including Catholics or Mormons or pirates or anything like that. That's just Protestant Christians. And so I think the main point here is they're saying it would also make an embarrassing contrast with the membership of the Communist Party in China, which is estimated at 98 million in 2020. So essentially, this article is claiming that there's more Christians than communists in China. It's just, I suppose, that the communists have so much more control and power than the Christians that you would never know.
I would say that the majority of people in communist. Oh, I think I froze.
Did you?
Yep.
Am I frozen?
Oh no, it's just me. It's this.
Oh.
My.
I can hear you, but you are.
Hold on, I just
there
fixed
we go.
it.
There we go.
Yeah, I don't know why it does that sometimes, but I would say that for the most part, in communist countries, the majority of the population are not communists.
Mm-hmm.
Because how could you be living in those type of conditions?
Yeah.
And it's not like you can vote your way out of it.
Right. It's true. The people in power are communist. And like I was saying earlier, I think maybe in the beginning, maybe a large portion of the population believed that maybe communism was something that would be good for them in the future. But yeah, then a generation or two later, everyone realized that this ain't for me.
It just never works out. It never does. I just don't get it. I don't get it.
You see that, you know what? That was a big back in the midterm elections, we saw that Miami was so big for Republicans, and it's because all of the Cubans that moved up to Miami were
Yep.
like it was the only city in the entire country that voted Republican, is because it's the majority of the population is Cuban. And they're like, we just left to not be in that anymore. And so they were like not standing for it.
Yeah. I have never met one Cuban that was like, "Oh yeah, communism's dope."
Yeah.
Never. My wife went to Cuba, I think twice, and
Mhm.
when she spoke to people out there, she met people who did say that they enjoyed communism and that they like it. And it's like they're saying that in a store that has like one pack of rice,
Yeah.
and you know that they're saying it because if they say anything to the contrary of that, they could be put in jail.
Right. It's crazy, man.
And
Crazy.
this what
Hey,
this what people want.
yeah. And well, I think one of the issues is that, like we were mentioning a little bit earlier, people just don't look into stuff enough. People don't spend the time to actually research what they're saying they believe. They just see that somebody else is saying it and it feels good to them, and so they just jump right on it too and say that they believe it as well.
Yeah, I think might have been Socrates or Plato or one of them that said a democracy is only as moral or as good as the people in it, right? I would
Mhm.
say the same thing with communism or with anything, because even if, let's say, me and you, we were radical communists and we were doing it because we felt that there was too many poor people and we needed to redistribute the wealth and make sure that everyone's got an even playing field. We could do this under the impression that we're doing the right thing for everybody.
Mhm.
But what happens is that it's not about us and our intentions. It's about the other people who get in power and their intentions.
Mhm.
You know, you could be the best person, best well-intended person out there and get control of the country and be like, wow, we're really going to fix things. But then you got 100 people who just followed you on the journey so they could take advantage of it when they got there. And
Yep.
that's the problem, is that even if you could build a decent case for communism, it's just practically speaking, our human nature will ruin it. We even ruin good things. We
Yeah.
ruin the United States that has all these checks and balances. If it wasn't for these checks and balances that we have in the United States, we would have been turned into had a tyrannical government. It would have happened a long time ago. So even in a country that has all these checks and balances, you still see corruption. When there is no checks and balances, corruption runs rampant, and it just happens over and over and over. And I don't know how many times we have to see it before we're like, yeah, let's never try that again.
Yeah, you get Cuba, you get Venezuela, you get North Korea, you get the old Soviet Union, you get North Vietnam, you get all these places where you can just see it, and you can just see it fail in real time. It's wild to me that if there was a couple good examples of where communism worked, I guess some folks would say China right now, although
But
I think that's coming to an end at some point.
but also China has incorporated some free trade.
Yeah.
It's not like they are the Communist Party of China that has the control, but they've also opened up free trade. They've also opened up certain, if I remember correctly, some of the farmers got to have some private land, and it's not, and this is not me bigging up China at all, but the reason that it's holding some economic power is because there's still some free trade in there, right? And they
hmm
do business with other countries and so on and so forth.
hmm Yeah, I'll tell you what though, they're still on their people, bro. Did you see that article? Like, I think it was probably 6, 7 months ago. It came out that right here, in Brooklyn that they found like Chinese plants inside the police department that were here just to police people that were like visiting and staying for a while from China. And they were like straight up employed by the NYPD with uniforms, and but they didn't like spend any time uh actually policing the streets. They just spent all their time policing, Chinese folks that were just trying to live their life over here.
What?
Bro, they keep tabs on them, bro.
Yo,
They're
that's
keeping their thumb on it.
bananas. Yeah, there's only a certain amount of money that you can take out of the country with you.
Yeah.
There's a lot of rich people in China,
Mm-hmm.
but there's only a certain amount of money you can take out of China because they want to keep the money in China.
Right.
So there are people who are wealthy, but you can't go anywhere. You can't do anything. You're stuck. If you leave, you only have this limited amount of money. And then, of course, they're keeping tabs on you. It's so crazy, especially because they don't want you taking your money out of that country.
Yeah, for sure. And they have to do that because they're doing all these initiatives to they're actually purposely devaluing their money right now. But anyways, this is I feel like we're kind of getting into a tangent here. Just
Let's bring it back. So
what do Chinese government?
So let's bring this back to a Jesus topic, right?
Let's do it.
What do you say when somebody says Jesus is a socialist or a communist?
I think that this is one of the people who haven't spent much time going deeper into that viewpoint. And we actually had a stream with Virgil Walker and John Root, who I know you've done a couple things with, and Honest Youth Pastor a few months back.
I remember that.
Where we were answering whether or not a Christian could vote a Democrat. And I don't want to get too crazy into that here because I know we have a lot of different kinds of folks watching. But basically, a lot of what we were talking about is how some of these folks just haven't gone deep enough and researched enough into the view itself to understand that that's probably not the most loving thing. It's probably not the most generous thing. And it's kind of as simple as going back to the giving a man a fish versus teaching a man to fish analogy, that some of these ideals, while they may seem nice and they may seem and appear loving, a lot of it ends up with just giving the man a fish and the man depending on you giving him the fish for his entire life, and the man never ever actually being able to lift himself out of being given a fish all the time. Whereas the other viewpoint, I find, and I think a lot of folks find, is more loving, because when you're teaching him to fish, you're empowering him to lift himself out of his situation, to not depend on other people, which for lots of men is humiliating, and to be proud of themselves, and to have ambition and have hope. I think a lot of folks would find that truly loving and find that truly generous, and you're actually caring for the person much more than just saying, yeah, here's $5, go buy yourself a sandwich. In that case, you're taking care of them for a couple hours. Whereas if you say, hey, let me teach you how to use Excel so you can get a job and so you can support yourself for the entirety of your life, I would find that to be the more loving view. But the church answer, of course, to give you another angle here, is obviously Jesus is not politically affiliated to anybody. It's more so the ideals that you have to dive. I'm not going to go down into the whole analogy again. We're not going to dig any holes here. But you really have to get into the meat and potatoes. Let's do that. You have to get into the meat and potatoes of what the view actually is to determine whether that view lines up with the values laid out in the Bible or not.
Yeah, that was really good. There was something that I heard that said Jesus can't be a socialist because he obeyed the law, and in the law is thou shalt not steal, right? And if thou
Nice.
shalt not steal is in the law, who would you be stealing from?
Yeah.
If everybody is just sharing everything. No, somebody has to own something for you to steal it from them. So that means that Jesus believed in private property.
Good
So
point.
he just straight off the bat, he can't be a socialist because how is stealing, right?
Mm-hmm.
You would have to own this thing for me to steal it from you. And communism at its core is you own nothing. The state
Mm-hmm.
owns everything. Is he saying steal it from the state? That's
Yeah.
a different argument, but then it goes render to Caesar what is Caesar's. It's
Yeah.
a
I mean, also the socialism, after I more so communism, but also socialism, they're sort of in the same realm.
it's a step. Like one is a
Yeah,
step to the other.
exactly. I would say, after listening to the Karl Marx book, that it is like 95% based on covetousness, on saying that you have something that I want and I don't have it, so I take it from you. And that is not something that I think Jesus would be into.
Right. So that goes even further, right?
Yeah.
That goes from not stealing to not coveting.
Yep.
So I bet you we could keep going down the list.
We probably
You
could.
know?
We could probably hit all 10 if we wanted
Yeah,
to.
yeah. If we just kept digging to more meat and potatoes.
Okay.
Digging the potatoes out of the meat. What does that even mean? Get down to the meat and potatoes. What does that mean?
It
Let's
means
look that up right now, and then we'll
you're
close this
digging
out.
you're digging into potatoes grow in the ground,
Yes,
obviously.
but where's the meat?
Well, the meat, it's born onto the ground when it's first born. It's on the ground, so you got to dig and get the
All
meat
right,
and
I'm
potatoes.
looking this up. Meat and potatoes. American English form means English informal, the most important or basic parts of a discussion. Yeah, but where did that come from?
It's because you're getting right to the meat and potatoes, bro.
I need to get to the meat and potatoes of the meat and potatoes.
You're not
I
doing
need
the
to.
salad. You're not doing the hors d'oeuvres. You're doing the meat and
I
potatoes.
guess okay. Now it's making sense. It's all coming. It's all coming back. So I don't know why the word down is what was bothering me. Getting down to the meat and potatoes. But I guess if you have all of this and then you're getting down to the meat and potatoes. Now I get it.
The appetizers start at the top,
Yeah,
and then
yeah.
there's salads, and you got to get down to the meat and potatoes.
Yeah, definitely. And then don't dig past that.
Because there's dessert after that. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. All right. Well, Ryan, I've enjoyed my time with you, not in Puerto Rico, and your luggage being in Puerto Rico. Got people in the chat. Thank you so much for tuning in with us. Ryan, any last words?
No, man. It was great catching up virtually, like you said yourself. Maybe if you could send me my bag, I would appreciate that. Make sure, if you guys didn't already, subscribe to Why Jesus Network. Do that. We're growing quick. It's been a lot of fun to do these podcasts together.
Definitely. I'll send your bag back with the Book of Mormon and some meat and potatoes.
Beautiful. That's all I want.
And a letter from AOC.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, perfect. I would love that.
It won't be specifically by her. Like, I'm going to write it and sign it, but...
And it's just going to say AOC.
Yeah, but you can pretend.
Okay. Sounds good.
All right.
I appreciate it, bro.
All right, comrade. See you later.